Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. My name is Bliss Foster. Welcome back to the ongoing series where we're exploring every single runway show that Martin Margiela produced while he was at Maison Martin Margiela. Today we find ourselves in spring-summer 1995. This is the 13th show that Martin Margiela produced. Okay, so spring-summer 1995 is a really interesting show. In fall-winter 1994, the last season, which was actually just a month prior to this one, they had to then play catch up and quickly deliver a whole nother season's worth of clothes. So they sent fairly plain invitations out to a bunch of people and had a runway show type thing at the cinema. The film that the Maison produced during the last season, during fall-winter 1994, was what was actually being shown at this cinema. So this is the first time that they're like doing a public showing of one of their films. And again, we went into a lot of detail about this on the last episode, but just to recap you a little bit, 9 different stores around the world that carried the Maison's work had a party essentially where 9 different models would show up and do something fairly similar. They would have a big banner out front somewhere and then the models would tear it down. They would be like behind the glass in the windows wearing the clothes, and then there would just be sort of a party where the models wearing the clothes would be walking around. Many of the models looked fairly similar from store to store, and all of those parties took place at the same time in different time zones on the same day. So we started in Japan and we did 9 different locations as it became 7 p.m. I believe, and then the last show was in New York. It's confusing, right? The runway show video for last season is being shown as the runway show for this season. The invitees were all sitting in just traditional movie theater seats that they already had at the theater, but there was a number of seats throughout the theater that had white canvas cloth coverings, and these were labeled reserved. And this is where the models that everyone did not know were models secretly sat for the show.
They were already wearing the collection.
After the fall-winter 1994 collection short film was shown, all of the models simultaneously rose up in their seats and probably had to do that awkward, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry, thank you. Excuse me, thank you." So some drums started up and all of the models took to the stage together and all stood in a group in front of everyone, and everybody went bananas and cheered. This is such an interesting format for a show with lots of incredible clothes in it. We're further developing Martin's evolution of the runway show as an art form. There's tons of interesting stuff. Let's do the theme song here so that we can go ahead and dig into the details. So we're kind of dealing with 2 shows in one here from the audience's perspective, right? We have the fall-winter 1994 show, which was shown as a short film, and then suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, there is a runway show here. Like, I am looking at the new collection. I will say this show feels surprisingly whole considering they only had a month to put it together. I mean, you could have been working in advance, like while they were doing the See Now, Buy Now show prep stuff, they could have been starting on the design and the preparation for this collection. But if you're switching to a See Now, Buy Now model, that's a business move, not really so much a cultural, like artistic move so much. Because if the See Now Buy Now model worked really well for them in fall winter 1994, it would stand to reason that they would just kind of keep doing that season after season. For whatever reason, probably financial, they didn't do the See Now Buy Now thing again and they switched to this, which makes me think that they actually did have just around like 4 weeks to put this entire collection together, which is nuts. But anyway, this show really strongly continues this theme that they've had for sure since the spring summer 1990 show of this casualness and intimacy with the audience. The girls all take the stage with their backs turned, and then they all turn around at once when the music kind of shifts a little bit, and then they take turns coming forward to show off the outfit that they're wearing. One interesting flip on last season is that all of the models appeared on stage wearing the same rhodoid strips over their eyes, so they look like someone who has been made anonymous in a newspaper photo. But unlike last season, they actually take those strips off in front of everyone so that they can see their eyes. Technically, the rhodoid strips did come off last season, but it wasn't during the performative part of the presentation as they are doing here. There's really only one styling detail here that's relevant, and that's these roses that have been scotch taped to the model's skin. This is a throwback to corsages, which you may know from prom. Used to be used as more of a ceremonial thing. I think the reason that they use just plain roses of a bunch of different colors is because of roses' representation of secrecy. Obviously, roses are most often used for love, but the fact that they didn't pin it down to a specific color of roses here makes me think that they were playing into some other symbolism for roses, and usually kind of the second meaning for roses is secrecy. If you watched the last episode, you heard me go into a lot of detail about the numbering system that got introduced during fall/winter 1994. That same numbering system is being continued here, but we've added a 6th category here. So just as a refresher, the numbering system is one of the most iconic things about Maison Martin Margiela, but that numbering system hasn't been put onto the tags the way that we know it to be now. The tag was still blank as it's been for most of the history so far. The numbering system for this show is as follows. Looks from former collections, replicas of old garments, existing garments with exaggerated proportions, artisanal clothes and accessories, basics and undergarments, linings of garments being used as the garment itself. That 6th category is actually really cool that they added that in, because that was apparently something that Martin really loved, this idea of just tearing out the lining from something and then just wearing that as a garment. We first saw that used in fall/winter 1990, and we're getting heavy usage of it in this season. I'm really glad that they made this an official category that they were working from, because it continues this idea that the Maison pitches that there's this woman in Paris who's extremely cool and she's very pretty, but she's not very rich. She like works at a restaurant or something, and she still is able to show up to parties and look so cool and chic, even if she isn't spending any money on her outfit. It's something where she's able to just DIY something very clever at home. Ugh, I love this so much. And if you really like this series, there are some Margiela episodes that are only available on my Patreon, so you should definitely go look at that. I have my YouTube ads turned off because YouTube ads do not pay anything. So my only source of income is just through the Patreon. So if you like this series, want it to stick around, if you want more of it, you should support it. Link is down in the description. Go support indie content. I want to take a little bit of time to go through the actual clothes as they correspond to the different categories and kind of see what we're working with in this collection a little bit. There's some stuff that we're going to breeze over a little bit more because it's kind of self-explanatory. Like the first category, garments from previous seasons, I don't really feel the need to like pull out all of those garments and like talk about them in detail, because those are things that we have talked about in detail in the past. I want to be respectful of your time is my point. But the second category, the replicas, is where we start to see some really interesting stuff. The most notable garment in this category is an item called the chemise à la reine. This is an item that was popularized by Marie Antoinette when she was going through her workwear phase. Just really quickly, Marie Antoinette was scooped out of a royal lifestyle that she had as a childhood and got put into literally the most formal position in the world at the time, which is the Queen of France. Clothes have always been an exceptionally important thing to royals, and especially in that era. The clothing honestly was, it bordered on ridiculous. Marie Antoinette gets kind of sick of this at one point and decides that she wants to start wearing garments that more represent simpler people. So she would wear this little chemise and then go pretend to be a milkmaid, which is so goofy. As it stands in this show though, I think it actually works really well as a Margiela piece. He's kind of all about repurposing garments and using them for things that they weren't initially used for, and this would have definitely been something that, at least for the person who was wearing it, Marie Antoinette, it was not considered to be like an appropriate thing for her to wear. And so it's kind of that same sort of twist that they're giving it here. We also have a negligee from the 1940s. Negligees now are just kind of a standard lingerie item that just kind of are see-through. There's not really a whole lot of like parameters on it at this point. In the 1940s, negligees were a very different thing. And again, I just think this fits really well into the idea of like cool girl who goes and like thrifts something that's like really unusual and ends up wearing it as a party dress. It fits very well into the overall narrative that they're building. In the third grouping of clothing, the proportions, which this group is basically the doll's wardrobe category at this point. Here we just have a big jacket, really good use of proportions here. Kind of the thing that I love about this group so much is that the clothes end up looking really unique and awesome without being totally just otherworldly. It's a very simple framework that Martin dreamed up to create very compelling clothes. We have a great variation on this concept here since Ken's wardrobe is now being incorporated into it as of this season. Here we have a shirt and a tie, but because of the proportions thing, the shirt looks more like a jacket. And of course, this unique kind of clip-on tie thing is very compelling looking, sort of playful, sort of goofy. Here we have a high-waisted skirt that's in a Glen plaid. This is what Glen plaid looks like, just all on its own. More Ken doll stuff. We have another item that is an enlarged gingham print shirt. Just another example where this very simple concept is producing some really visually compelling results. Category 4, artisanal stuff. Maybe the coolest item that's in this entire collection are these strapless tops that have been made from men's dress shirts. Something that I preach a whole lot on this channel is that this is likely much more complicated to execute from the artisanal team's perspective than just adding some strings onto an existing shirt to tie it with. They would often have to take these clothes apart and figure out different ways of doing the pattern in order to make it fit the way they really wanted it to. It looks effortless here, and it's supposed to, but I think there's much more that goes into it than we can initially see. Another artisanal item that's really cool is the sweater bag. It's exactly what it sounds like. It is a sweater that has been modified to become a bag. Group 5, basics and underwear. I've said it before, I think this category was created so that they could increase profitability. They're just items that have a very high margin of profit on them, like t-shirts and stuff. So there isn't a whole lot to unpack in this grouping except for one specific thing with these very XL t-shirts that are being worn by one of Margiela's main muses, Christina DeConning. Very, very oversized t-shirt that's sort of being worn like a dress, kind of off the shoulder a little bit because the neck is really wide. Especially with the rose that's been scotch taped to her skin. This gives off a very Greco-Roman kind of look. Using oversized undergarments to achieve that look has been something that was one of the most famous things that Margiela did early on in his career in spring-summer 1990 when he put a sheer see-through tight-fitting top over an extremely oversized tank top to kind of make it look like the model was one of those Greco-Roman statues. Group 6, the linings of garments. This is another one where it's a really stellar idea, but I don't feel like there's a whole lot more to unpack just besides the vibe, the very bohemian vibe that you get from a girl saying like, yeah, it's the lining for a different dress. I just tore it out. As always, the Maison's past is a significant part of its present. Showing the collection from last season at the same time that they're showing the current collection is a perfectly self-referential thing that Martin is kind of becoming known for at this point. To be honest, the best part of this show is the way that they've set this up so that the models' individual personalities become the focus of our attention. When they're all up on stage together, it looks like they weren't given super clear direction as to what exactly they were supposed to do when it was their turn. And so by leaving those directions kind of vague, it sort of left them all to sort of do what they would have naturally done if they were up there alone. And so with that vagueness of direction, we sort of are able to see more about each of these models as individual people. We see some of them copying the girl that went before them. We see some of them trying to really step out and kind of show off. We can see that some of these women are not professional models. We can see that some of these women probably would not like to be there. And we see another really excellent demonstration of the value of these women's personalities when they're going between makeup and the theater after everything is all set and they're getting ready to actually start the thing that they had practiced, and they're all so casual. They're just kind of cheesing for the camera and having fun with each other and just being themselves. And this kind of celebration is something that speaks to the core of Margiela. I mean, for how much weight we all give to the anonymous part of the brand, I'm starting to become more and more convinced that the real heart of this brand is the beauty of everyday life. It's a celebration of women as they already are. To me, this is a really beautiful reminder that the things that make you fall in love with someone are not times when they look like this for whatever reason. It's moments when they're behaving like this, when their hair maybe doesn't look perfect and their makeup maybe isn't perfect, but their personality is so magnetic that that's the thing that makes people fall in love with each other. And the fact that they're able to capture this kind of beauty in such an organic way for these is just, it's unbelievable to me. This stuff is so beautiful. Thanks so much for joining me. Go join the motherfucking Patreon, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe if you've somehow forgotten to do that. Love you lots, I mean it, bye-bye.